In this video, I'll take you through the key lessons from Game 1 of Schev's classic book, Logical Chess Move by Move. Coming up, we've got von Scheve versus Teichmann, with some instructive mistakes from white, some great positional play by black, and then a stunning sacrifice to finish things off. So keep watching. My name's Nathan Rose. I'm the author of Chess Opening Names, and I'm also an enthusiastic adult improver. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and you won't miss out on any of the great stuff that I've got coming up. Logical chess move by move is pitched at the, let's say, beginner to intermediate level of player. Because it is a book at around that beginner to intermediate level, I'm going to take the time to explain a bit more than if I were to be speaking to a more advanced audience. So if you are a more advanced player, let's say you're around the 2000 level, some of what I'm saying may be self-evident, but hey, it always pays to reinforce the basics. And I think this game actually has quite a bit, even for the more advanced player. So we get e4, e5. The importance of moves like these is to fight for the center. Knight f3, knight c6 follows the same principles. Knight f3 develops a piece towards the center. Knight c6 defends in a good way while also developing a piece. And the next couple of moves, again, develop the bishops to good squares. Both bishops are pointing at the naturally weak f7 and f2 pawns respectively. And for this reason, this opening, the Italian opening, is one of the best openings, I would say, if you're reasonably new to the game. You're developing your pieces sensibly, you're preparing to castle quickly, and you're not moving the same piece twice in the opening. So white goes ahead with c3. A couple of ideas here. You can bring the queen to b3 to increase the pressure on f7. You're also preparing to play d4. And if white can play d4, then white will get a good grip over the center. But as the author says, this move also comes with the cost that it takes the natural square away from the queenside knight. Like the knight would like to come to c3, but there's a pawn in the way. Now black plays queen to e7, which is a move that the author was quite complimentary of, but you have to remember that this book came out in the 1950s, and so opening theory has moved on since then. I also think that this move is a bit wrong just on principle, because in general you want to develop your minor pieces before the queen, so a move like knight to f6 would have been preferable. But okay, queen e7 was played, white castled, and then we get d6. The idea of this is to allow the light squared bishop to develop. Now white strikes in the center with d4, and here I think is an instructive moment, which I think a lot of intermediate players even might get wrong. I think many players here would capture on d4 if they had the black pieces. Now in this case, white would capture back with the pawn, and the bishop still has to move. Let's say it goes to b6. But the difference between this and what happened in the game is that by having this capture on d4, the c3 square is now free for the white queenside knight to develop to. So that's why in the game black instead just retreated the bishop to b6 straight away without making the capture on d4 first. Now white plays a4. It's very important in chess to always look at what your opponent's threatening. Your opponent, in this case, if you had the black pieces, is actually threatening to play a5, which might look surprising because it seems as though that square is under control. But let's just take a look. Let's say you play knight f6, thinking that a5 is just going to lose a pawn. Okay, so a5 now comes, and if you take with the bishop, the tactical point is that white can play d5, which means that the knight has to move, right? Otherwise it just gets captured next. And once the knight does move, then the bishop is lost. White is up a piece. If you take with the knight instead, then white can actually take this knight anyway, and if black takes back, there's this check which is very important. That gives a check to the king and also attacks the bishop, so once the check is blocked, the bishop is lost. And one important principle, just in general as a rule of thumb, is that two minor pieces, so that's a bishop and a knight in this case, is generally more valuable than just one rook. So this trade has benefited white. White's got two extra minor pieces for one rook, and so white is much better in this position. Good one to keep in mind there. So seeing that that threat was coming, black instead played a6 to give the bishop an escape square. And now white goes ahead and plays a5 anyway. This is actually a mistake in this case because now it's different. The inclusion of a6 means that you can actually take this pawn. Let's just see what happens in the same kind of line, right? If you try and capture and then regain the material with this check, because a6 was played, you can now play b5. And okay, white can take the bishop, but black will also take a bishop. And if you count the material now, black is just up an exchange. In the game, black didn't actually go for this and instead just retreated the bishop. And now h3 was played. And we're going to see that this becomes the source of white's problems later. The thing about h3 is it's making a weakening move around the white king. This setup here, with three pawns on the starting squares, with the knight on f3 and the rook on f1, is the ideal defensive setup for the castled white king. As soon as these pawns move, like if they can be provoked forward, or if even unprovoked you play h3, then that creates weaknesses which can be exploited later, as we're going to see. The reason white played h3 was to prevent bishop to g4, which admittedly is an annoying pin, but white had other development priorities here. White spent a lot of moves now moving pawns in the opening. We've had a4, a5, c3 was played, and now h3. And now look at white's queenside. It's the result of all these pawn moves. White hasn't developed their pieces. And you know, if we just take that move back and let's say that white did spend that move instead to develop a piece and then bishop to g4 comes, well, if you want to be super conservative, you can just move the bishop back, breaking the pin immediately. So there was no need to prevent that pin, you could have just reacted to it when it came. But h3 was played, and now black reacted in the best way, to just continue with active piece play. White's moving pawns, black's developing pieces, and we're going to see the consequence of that. And now white makes the first real mistake, capturing on e5. The reason this is a mistake is that captures in the center tend to favour the side which is better developed. And in this case, that's black. Black recaptures with the knight, importantly. It would be wrong to recapture with the pawn because the pawn is not really doing anything on e5. You can improve a piece by this capture, and if white takes back, as happened in the game, then you can improve the queen. So now white tries to finish their development, and also white's got the problem of the e4 pawn, right? It's currently attacked twice by black. So the move knight to d2 defends it once, but it's also defended indirectly. Like, black can't take this and take back, because then rook to e1 would skewer and win the black queen, and black could resign. But although the e4 pawn is immune from capture, we now see the point of why h3 can be dangerous, especially when you're underdeveloped. And it comes the sacrifice, bishop takes h3. This is a brilliant move. The sacrifice works because of how disorganized white's queenside is. The bishop is blocked from influencing the game. The knight's not yet reached a good square. The rook's also out of the game. And black's pieces, meanwhile, the queen and the knight are ready to fly in. This bishop on a7 as well, don't forget about that. That's pointing at black's king. That's another reason, by the way, why the capture on e5 was a mistake, right? This capture actually made black's dark squared bishop more active by opening this line. Formerly that line was closed, but this capture means that this line is now open. So let's just go forward towards the sacrifice. Now white really has to take that, otherwise white's just a pawn down. And then comes the follow-up, queen to g3. It's important to notice patterns like this. That pawn is pinned in front of the white king. You can't take the queen because that's an illegal move. The pawn is pinned due to the dark squared bishop over on a7. So if you can't take the queen, then the only other legal move is king to h1. So black grabs another pawn, king moves back, and now knight to g4. That threatens checkmate, which is a threat that white obviously needs to deal with. So white plays knight to f3, and now we get another check, again exploiting this pin. So the king has to move back, and now is the final move of the game. Bishop takes f2, and at this point white resigned. If you take this bishop, then that's checkmate. And if white doesn't take the bishop, then black's threat is to play queen to h3 check, which is more devastating now because the white king no longer has the g1 square to escape to, because that's controlled by black's bishop. Let's just show that. Let's just give black another move. Queen h3 check. The only legal move now is knight to h2, but of course that fails to queen takes h2 mate. So white resigned in view of all of this, but incredibly white actually has a defense, which is not mentioned in the book. Irving Scheve, of course, didn't have access to computer engines back in the 1950s, but with the move bishop takes f7 check, incredibly white can escape. Let's see how. Well, first of all, what happens if black takes the bishop? Well, the follow-up is queen to d5 check. And now, where does the black king go? Well, let's say it goes to e7. Well, now white's bishop enters. If you keep trying to run away, well, then you've got queen to f5 check. And now the only safe square actually for the black king to go to is c6, otherwise it's getting mated. And then queen to d5 check again, and we've got this perpetual. So white escapes with a draw. Well, what if black doesn't take the bishop? I mean, black can clearly see that there's checkmate threats to white's own king. So what if you just ignore that bishop and play king to f8? Well, then this line is even more unbelievable. White can play bishop to f4, giving up the bishop. If you take it, then white can play bishop to h5, and that is going to take off this important knight. So if black tries to renew the threat, then white will take the knight, and white will actually be up material, because then you can also take the bishop at the end. And black's king is also in some danger now, by the way. So white is winning in this line. I think that's incredibly hard to see for a human, and of course I wouldn't have found it either if the computer engine hadn't revealed it to me, but it just goes to show how much can be hidden in even the most seemingly hopeless position. I think really the key lesson from this game, though, is the danger of playing h3. That's what led to all of white's problems, especially combined with later this capture here, which opened up black's dark squared bishop. Black was able to develop pieces to more and more aggressive squares, and then eventually the sacrifice worked. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, please show your appreciation by giving a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this one, and do feel free to drop a comment down below as well, what you thought of this game and what you thought of the analysis. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time then, I'm Nathan Rose. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.